It all began on a quiet Saturday morning, the kind of morning where the sun paints long golden stripes across the driveway and the neighborhood still seems half asleep. I was sipping my coffee, scrolling through emails, when I heard a sharp knock on my front door. Something about it wasn't right, too forceful, too impatient. My instincts, honed from years of service, immediately told me this wasn't a friendly neighbor asking to borrow sugar. When I opened the door, two men stood there in police uniforms. Their badges gleamed, but my eyes caught something off. The stitching on the shoulder patches looked cheap, their belts mismatched, and their posture too aggressive, too staged. One of them barked, "Sir, you're under arrest. Step outside now." My grip tightened on the doorframe. I didn't move. Not yet. Because if there's one thing I've learned as chief of police, it's this: real cops don't show up like that. I let the silence hang heavy, forcing them to fill it. They shifted uncomfortably, but then one of them shoved a paper in my face. "Court order," he said, but the seal was smudged, the font wrong, the signature printed instead of signed. My pulse quickened, not from fear, but from the realization of what this really was. The HOA. For months they had been at war with me. Fines, letters, threats, because I refused to follow their petty rules. I wouldn't paint my mailbox beige, I wouldn't cut down the oak tree in my yard, and I wouldn't pay their ridiculous noise violation fee for hosting my niece's birthday party. And now it seemed they had escalated from fines to full-blown impersonation of law enforcement. I almost laughed. Almost. But instead I leaned in and said calmly, "Do you boys even know who you're talking to?" Their smirk faltered for the briefest second, and in that hesitation, I knew I had them. I didn't reveal my badge, not yet. I wanted to see how far they were willing to go. One reached for his handcuffs, clearly the plastic kind you'd buy online, and ordered me to turn around. That was my first rehook moment. The point where the story wasn't just about HOA drama anymore. This wasn't neighborly squabbling. This was impersonating federal officers, a felony, and the irony was almost poetic. They thought they were cornering me, but they were walking straight into the lion's den. I stepped back, pretending to comply, and that's when I caught sight of a third figure lurking across the street. A woman in a business suit, arms crossed, sunglasses hiding her eyes, watching closely. The HOA president. My blood ran hot. She was behind all of this. The fake officers pushed me forward, trying to lead me to their car, a battered old sedan with a plastic siren awkwardly stuck on the roof. I played along, feigning confusion, letting them believe they were in control. But in my pocket, my phone was already recording, transmitting everything directly to the department. Every word, every action logged. The trap was already closing, and they didn't even know it. As they shoved me toward the car, one leaned in and whispered, "This'll teach you not to mess with us." That sentence burned into me, a confession, a weapon. I turned slowly, locking eyes with the HOA president across the street. I gave her the faintest smile. She stiffened. She knew something was wrong. Just when it seemed like they were about to shove me into the car, I stopped dead in my tracks. "Gentlemen," I said, pulling a small black wallet from my jacket. "Before you take me anywhere, you should see this." I flipped it open, and the golden badge of the chief of police gleamed in the sunlight. Their faces drained of color instantly. One stammered, the other froze, the cuffs trembling in his hand. The woman across the street lowered her sunglasses, horror etched across her face. I didn't shout. I didn't move aggressively. I simply said, "You're under arrest." The reversal was like a thunderclap. In that single instant, the hunters became the prey. But the story didn't end there, because just as I prepared to detain them, a black SUV screeched around the corner. 4 more men in dark suits jumped out, not cops, not neighbors, mercenaries. My heart lurched. The HOA president hadn't just hired impersonators, she had gone full-blown rogue, bringing in private enforcers to intimidate me. One of them pulled out a taser, another brandished a baton, and the air crackled with violence. For a second, even I questioned if I could handle this. That was the next rehook, when viewers think the tables have turned, but then the danger escalates even higher. My neighbors peeked out from their blinds, watching the chaos unfold, too scared to intervene. "Chief or not," one of the mercenaries growled, "you're coming with us." They underestimated me again, because in that moment my backup arrived, two unmarked police SUVs sliding into the street, sirens wailing, lights flashing. My officers poured out, weapons trained, shouting commands. The fake cops dropped their props instantly, hands shaking in the air. The mercenaries hesitated, but when a dozen barrels pointed at you, hesitation doesn't last long. Within seconds, the entire street was a scene out of a crime drama. Suspects on the ground, neighbors recording on their phones, and the HOA president trembling like a cornered animal. I walked straight to her, every step deliberate, every eye in the neighborhood watching. She tried to speak, stuttering excuses, but I cut her off. "You orchestrated this," I said loud enough for everyone to hear. "You impersonated officers, you threatened me, and you endangered this entire community." She shook her head, desperate. "You can't prove—" I raised my phone, showing the live recording, her voice ordering them to teach me a lesson. Gasps rippled through the crowd. She was done. But then another twist, because the HOA president wasn't acting alone. As the officers cuffed her, she screamed, "You don't understand! They'll come after all of us!" Panic twisted her face. She wasn't afraid of me. She was afraid of someone else. And in that instant, I realized this war wasn't just between me and the HOA. It went deeper, into corruption, into money, into something much darker than property rules and petty fines. My mind raced. Who was they? Was the HOA just a puppet? The story kept pulling me deeper. Days later, while interrogating the arrested impersonators, one broke down and revealed the truth. A shadowy organization funding HOAs across the state, using them as fronts to launder money, intimidate residents, and control neighborhoods under the guise of rules and fines. My arrest wasn't personal revenge. It was part of a larger plan to remove me because I had power, because I couldn't be bought, because I was the one thing standing in their way. That was the ultimate rehook, the reveal that the villain wasn't who we thought, and the battle was only beginning. The arrests made headlines. HOA president arrested for hiring fake cops. Neighbors approached me with gratitude, fear, and endless questions. But behind every thank you, I felt the looming shadow of something bigger. If they went this far once, what would they do next? The story didn't close with victory. It opened a new chapter of war. And as I looked out my window that night, watching the neighborhood lights flicker, I knew one thing for certain. This wasn't over. The HOA had played their hand. Now it was my turn to strike back.